schedule an appointment to see your doctor. The doctor examines you, and a series of tests happen in hopes to determine what your sickness is. After a few days, the doctor asks you to come back to his office, in which the doctor describes what he has found. Your doctor says our tests have concluded that you have a terminal disease. Terminal means that death is expected, and this illness will end your life. I know Pastor Hill knows exactly what I'm talking about back here. I thank the Lord for his healing power. Amen. Yeah. So you hear this, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about hearing this news? And how do you respond to the doctor who has just broke this news to you? You know, well, that's faith. Well, bless God. God's going to heal us, and everything. And we should stand true on the foundation of God's word, because healing is for our bodies. You know, but we read in Hebrews chapter 9, verse number 27. It says, "And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment." Psalms chapter 103, verses 14 through 16 says, "For he knows our frame, he remembers that we are dust. As for man, his days are like grass, as a flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passes over it, and it is gone, and its place remembers it no more." Yes, I believe that we serve a God that heals and delivers. Yes, sickness was never meant to be a part of our bodies, and I believe that. Yes, we serve a God of miracles, and I'm thankful that we serve a God of miracles. And we could probably go around the room and discuss all the miraculous things that God has done for our lives, and touched our bodies of sickness and illness and those things. And yes, we should hold on to hope. However, I must remind us that unless Christ comes back, while we are still breathing in these bodies, we must be aware that we still live in a fallen world where death is present, and that our bodies will return to the ground. Yeah. Our main emphasis of hope should be in Christ, and that regardless if I live or die, I live unto Christ. That should be our emphasis. And so, I would like to say today that I praise God for hospice ministry. As most of you today, I believe will have some part to play in hospice ministry. Looking across there, every one of us will have some part to play in hospice ministry. Due to people to whom, guess what, you're going to have the opportunity to walk as they transition from this life to the next. And some of y'all may have already been there. And so, and it's funny, I have many stories where many will tell me that after they got sick, they lost connection with the church and the church family. I have many that tell me that. Listen, back in December, I asked them, I said, because usually I will, if I perform a funeral for hospice, for one of our patients, then usually the funeral home will give you, some gratitude of some money or something like that, a check. But that money goes into our hospice foundation, or our chaplain foundation, to where we're able to support people. And so I asked one of the ladies, and I said, because I was trying to remember how many funerals I've done, especially since COVID. That was a wild year. But since December, I had officiated for just hospice alone, not anything else. I had officiated over 40 funeral services. And that was just in a matter of 2.5, 3 years. And so I was talking to one of our owners about it, and he said, that just goes to show you that there are many people who are not connected with a church or have a pastor of some form. And that's sad. It really is. And in some of those cases, they may have been connected with the church, but when they got sick, nobody checked on them no more. Nobody did those things. A lot of times you leave it up to just the pastor, but as a body, we treatments and those things. Listen, hospice is a choice, okay? No matter what is told to you, hospice is, even the company that you go with hospice care, it is a choice. Okay, you are making a choice of, you know what, I just want to live the life meant for me as best as I can, and to do those things. So we serve the patient, the family together. We care for their physical, their emotional, their spiritual, their practical needs, and while we respect their quality of life. Listen, I have patients that they can still walk, they can still drive a car, they can still go places, they can still do things, but they're on service, and they meet the requirements, which we'll talk about here in just a second. The hospice company that I work with, if you see the purple color, our color is purple. So whenever we walk into either a facility or a home, and they see the purple, they're like, oh, there's my team, coming in. But we believe hospice affirms life. Okay? When you think hospice, death. No, we're affirming your quality of life. Okay, that's what hospice does. The program exists to provide support and care for each person in the last phase of an incurable disease so that he or she may live as fully and comfortably as possible. We recognize dying as a normal process. Death is neither hastened nor postponed. Hospice exists in the hope and belief that through appropriate care and promotion of a caring community sensitive to their needs, patients and families may be free to attain a degree of mental and spiritual preparation for death, making the experience more comfortable. Yes, death can be experienced comfortably. And so it's palliative care, and a lot of times you'll hear the words comfort care. It's comfort care. In hospice, you'll be assigned a team. Usually you'll have your physician, either the physician of the hospice company, or you can choose to stay with your doctor, your physician. Okay, make sure that choice is given either to you or your families, because you are at one point probably going to deal with hospice as long as you are in ministry, because of the folks that you take care of. Okay, and so there'll be a team that's assigned. There'll be an RN case manager who is in control of the case management of everything, whether it's medications and things of that sort. There will be a home health aide, if you choose to have one, who are wonderful to be able to come in and listen to us and those that work in hospice. No matter what discipline that you are, it's ministry. You're providing a service. Believe it or not, if you're working at McDonald's, that's a ministry because you are serving somebody. We don't think of that sometimes, but working a job, you're serving. Okay? And so as a home health aide, they're able to come in, help with baths, they're able to help do light work around the house, just different things, companionship, just all sorts of things like that. And then there's a support team that include a social worker. Now, you hear the word social worker, you're like, oh, they're coming in to take everything I've got. And that's the furthest thing of what the social worker is there to do. The social worker is there to help with those needs, whether it's paperwork, whether it's we offer what's called a respite stay, where if we have patients in homes that the caregivers, they get tired, they get wore out, right? As a caregiver, because you're providing all that care 24/7, and they're like, I just need some rest. So guess what? Up to 5 days, they can be put into a contracted facility, and then that caregiver can get some R&R, and then their loved one is able to come back home to them. And so the social worker gets all that together, and then is able to handle other resource needs and things of that sort to assist and help the patient and their family. And then there's praise the Lord that they haven't got away with it. I was talking to Matt today because in the secular world today, if there's any way that they can get rid of the spiritual support, they're going to do it. That's like one of the first things they got. And in a lot of nursing homes today, you don't see a chaplain that is specifically for that nursing home, that's been hired to work in it. It's far, few and far between. It's just, you just don't see it. I think there's one or two nursing homes that I go in, and they actually have a chaplain that is on staff at that facility. And so it's just one of the things that happens. But because of Medicare, Medicaid, those regulations, they still have to provide a chaplain if the patient and family choose that they would like to receive one. So there's that, and then there's counselors, volunteers. Listen, you can volunteer for in a hospice company. If you just want to go and sit with somebody and do those things, because they are. As Brother Matt mentioned earlier, there's loneliness in these nursing home setting and even in homes. You know, there's some folks, you know, they've lived in that house, but their family don't come to see them. You know, they're there by themselves. And just to have somebody come in and sit with them and do those things, and there's other opportunities to volunteer. And so please do that if you feel led to do that. So the primary goal of hospice, you know, we're there to alleviate pain and for patients to live as fully and comfortably as possible. Listen, don't believe the lie that, oh, they've started them on morphine, you know, it's going to change them and they're going to die quickly and those things. No, it doesn't. Listen, believe it or not, morphine actually opens up their lungs to help them to breathe better. Yeah. And you know, we have patients that, and as we talk about this next slide here, I believe, okay. So who qualifies for hospice? Okay. So any person whose physician has given a prognosis that they have 6 months or less to live. Okay, that's the prognosis. Now, when we think of hospice, when I was growing up, it's like, man, they've got hours, they got days. That's it. Okay, but to qualify for hospice means a physician that says, okay, they've got 6 months or less, and if their disease follows that normal progression, you know, they are going to pass away within that 6 months, and they qualify for hospice. Now, here's the thing. There's times I have folks that what we call graduate from hospice. They simply get better. And then I also have patients that they continue to qualify for hospice, and I've had them on service for 2, 3, 4 years. Okay? Anybody? Is that new to anybody? Okay. All right. So some stay on hospice services longer, but they continue to meet that 6 months requirement, and some graduate. But here's some of the diseases that typically that are listed as terminal, and folks face that. So there's dementia, end-stage Alzheimer's, cancer, and there's which, by the way, there still is no cure for dementia and those things. They come up with different medicine they're trying to do, but there's cancer, there's pulmonary disease, cardiac disease, renal failure, liver disease, Parkinson's disease, ALS. Listen, ALS is probably my least favorite of any disease, because their nervous system shuts down, their muscles shut down, they're not able to do anything. But in their mind, they are cognitive of everything that's going around. They are aware, but yet they cannot express how they are feeling or doing. And you know, in some of these things, it's just it's bad to watch. It's hard to watch when these things happen. And so these diseases, these things in hospice ministry, this is what you're coming against. So understanding these terminal illness and what they do to the body can help you be able to minister a little better and more effectively to the person. Listen, I've got a patient right now that has ALS. Okay, and someone in their final stages of life and to their family or caregiver. One of the first things, so when it comes to providing spiritual care to someone who is facing a terminal illness and are dying, one of the first things that we need to have about us in ministry is empathy. Okay? And so I start off with this because if you read the definition, it's from Merriam-Webster, it's all about understanding and being aware of what is going on. Okay? It's very important that you are aware of what stage of life area, what is going on that is taking place with them. And so, and when you do that, you're aware of their feelings, you're aware of their thoughts, you're aware of all those things. And listen, this is applicable to ministry in general. If we are talking to somebody, we need to be aware of that person. Sometimes we think we're high and mighty. Well, I'm just going to tell you like it is. And some folks, you got to tell it like it is. But you're aware of who that person is and what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And so you've got to start from there before you can even be able to minister to them. And so in end of life, we've got to understand what stage and there are stages of dying in a person's life, okay? When I was growing up, the stage of dying, when I heard the word hospice, for many people it was, they're there. They're fixing to take their last breath. But in hospice ministry, the goal is we want to get them at that 6-month mark. Because then we're able to begin to understand them more and to know them better and to be able to really make them comfortable and try to prepare folks for death. And death needs to be talked about more in church. Listen, I know life is very important. We talk about life, because guess what? We have everlasting life through Jesus Christ. But as long as we are here in this world, death is going to be present. And we have to be sure we know and understand how to prepare for when we die. And so that's what hospice teaches. So there's stages of death. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, she paved the way for hospice care in a lot of ways in her writings of dying and things of that sort. It wasn't really until the 70s and 80s that hospice care became prevalent in America, and companies started coming up, and then the government started passing bills and those things to provide government finances to pay for hospice care. If somebody has Medicare, Medicare will pay at 100% for hospice services. Okay, that's why many of our patients, they are older. I mean, you expect when you die, you are a little older, and most of them have Medicare. Now there are some that and not being comfortable. You know, and so they may just have to come off the hospice services, and then Medicare kicks back in and pays for that type of visit, because Medicare says we are only going to pay for whatever's hospice related. Okay, because you go from excessive or aggressive treatment to now palliative and non-curative care. Okay, and so folks get into this stage of acceptance. They're like, okay, I just want to live life as full as I can live it, with dignity and respect, and do those things. And that's what hospice provides. Okay, hospice provides that. Okay, people shouldn't be scared when they hear the word hospice. Okay, and again, it's okay if you choose not to have hospice care, you know, because that is a choice. And as faith believers in here, you know, my goodness, I know most of us we're going to hang on to the very last thread. You know, I know God's going to do it. You know, and we know He can. So, but death is a part of this world, and we got to recognize that too. Okay, and just because somebody passes away of a certain disease does not mean they didn't have enough faith to overcome it. Okay, listen, I've heard that garbage too. All right, listen, my grandma Hogue, I did not get to meet her, but I've heard the stories about her. And she was on her deathbed, dying of cancer in the hospital. And man, she was speaking in that heavenly language, and the staff that they tell me was going up there like, we don't know what she's saying, what she's talking about. And my aunt was my oldest aunt. She was sitting with her, and so my grandma Hogue, she looks over at my aunt, and she says, Ruth will no longer have any epilepsy. Now, Ruth is my other aunt, my dad's other sister. And she had always had epilepsies. And from that day forward, my aunt has never had one episode of epilepsy. You know, so I know my grandma Hogue had faith. And there was at one point she looked over at my aunt again, and she said, Ella, she said, you are about to see riches like you have never seen before. And I believe she was looking over there. I believe she was seeing some things. And I've even had patients that I've dealt with, and I had one patient in particular that he was coming in and out of consciousness, and he didn't know what was going on. Then all of a sudden he'd come out into consciousness, and he would look at me and he would start going, do you see that? Do you see that? And then he would go back out. And then he'd come back and say, did you hear that? Did you hear that? You know, and so I can only imagine what God is allowing them to hear. Because we know that this life is there's more to come after this life. This life is but a vapor, as we read earlier. It's just as grass, and the wind blows, and you know, it's gone. You know, so we have a lot to look forward to in the life to come. And so, these are some of the stages of there. And one thing that I think is very key when it comes to hospice ministry is companionship. This is one of your biggest things in ministry altogether, is companionship. It's the state of spending time with someone, or having someone to spend time with. And this is key, because you need to get to know them. Get to know who you are ministering to. And I know Matt talked about it, finding that connection and doing those things. And when people know that you are trying to connect with them, I had one patient one time said, we had to switch hospices and go with you guys. And they began to tell me some horror story. The chaplain came in, and it was just all about him. How many degrees he had, and he did this, and he did that. Can I just tell you something? When somebody has been given the news that they're going to die, they don't care about you. They're focused on themselves. Listen, they're coming to the end stage of their life. They've been broken this news. When you go to minister to these folks, it's not about you. It's about them. And how you can know them and do that. And so get to know them. Discuss their life review with them. Man, I tell you, it's wonderful, because support. So that was my avenue. I was able to go in, every other week. I'd come in there, me and her, we'd go and we'd sit in the living room, we'd talk about the Lord, and we'd talk about church, and we'd talk about all sorts of different things. But I made emphasis of every time I was there, I would just pop my head in the room and I'd say, hey, just wanted to say hi, how you doing? And that was it. That's all I would do. And so the more I did, listen, 2 or 3 days before he passed away, he allowed me to come in and share the gospel with him and talk to him. Let me backtrack this. Just a few weeks before that, he was allowing me to come in and actually talk about politics. Oh man, he was big on politics. And at the time, it was COVID, so don't wear that mask in here. Just all sorts of different things. But just opening that companionship and knowing who he was and those things. When you do that, it gives them affirmation that their life has meaning, and they see that you're not there to try to beat them on top of the head and do those things, but you're there for them, and they're able to open up to you more, and then you are able to minister to them. And so 2 or 3 days before he passed away, I was able to lead him to the Lord, and I officiated that funeral service, by the way. Man, that was something. That was something. We'd have to talk about later. Anyways, officiated that funeral service and had that opportunity. Now listen, if I had just went in there saying, well, bless God, I'm a man of God, and I'm going to say whatever I want to say and do whatever I want to do, man, that'd kick me out of that house. Don't usurp your authority just because you have it. Have companionship is huge. The next thing, ministry of presence. Ministry of presence is one of the biggest things ever. Just the fact that you are there. I learned this whenever I was a hospice chaplain. Ministry of presence is huge. I mean, when you're there, the doctor has to break the news to the family. Don't listen. Your loved one didn't make it. They come to the ER. That's not. I can still hear some of the screams in my head. You still focus on that. And there was one instance when it was actually a Sunday morning. connection and hopefully maybe some acceptance of this is where I'm at. Okay? And then evaluate if they need to seek forgiveness. Listen, when you have established that connection, it is going to allow you to receive those questions of whether or not they know God or don't know God. You know, and especially if they have asked you to come in, then there's something spiritual there on their mind anyhow that they're thinking about because they're glad you come in. Okay? And so evaluate if they need forgiveness, and then pray with them. Does I ask them, is it okay if I pray with you? Okay? And ask them because, you know, and then listen, there may be some visits in which they are so distraught, they don't even want to talk to God. They've been faced with this news, and I understand that's not the biblical way of doing things. It's like, oh, you should always want to talk to God and things. But remember, they're in different stages of dying, and their emotions and their feelings, and you guys know how it is. Listen, I'm telling you the truth. If I get mad at my wife, I am not going to outburst. I'm going to go to the other room and cool down a little bit, and then we're going to come back together and we're going to talk about things. That's the way you do things. And so they're angry. They're having all these emotions. And so it's very important that you understand that. In the event that someone does not have faith, guess what? It's okay to ask them if they would like to talk about it. Well, why don't you have faith? You know, me and Pastor Bob was talking about earlier. Talking about, you know, we've had Wiccans, we've had atheists, we've had agnostics, we've had different ones, and even dealing in the prison ministry. You know, you're going to deal with that, and the nursing. People are messy. And as pastors and ministers of the gospel of Jesus Christ, we have to realize that people are messy. And guess what? Point a finger at yourself because you're messy too. And we are all in need of a Savior, and we need to realize that. We all need to realize that. Allow them to ask questions and share the gospel with you. If that opportunity opens up, man, if that door is wide open, you step right into it. Because they are allowing you to share the gospel with them. They trust you enough to share the gospel with them. You know, and so it's very important that you do that. And then you help them find peace and solace in their faith. And guess what? Again, others may struggle with their faith or spiritual beliefs. And listen, and that's why at the beginning I asked you to picture yourself. You've been given this news. How do you respond? And I'll be honest with you, I would struggle. I'll be like, man, if at age of almost 36 years old, and I know some of you are like, well, you're young. At age of almost 36 years old, if I've been given that news, see their child